WSM Television, Channel 4, the video service of the National Life and Accident Insurance Company, Nashville, Tennessee.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is Bill Walker and his musical song. Emily, she comes from a fastidious family. By that I mean that her father was fast and her mother was hideous.
Oh, we're the men of Texaco. We work from Maine to Mexico. There's nothing like this Texaco of ours.
Lady, don't cackle. I'll lay the eggs here tonight.
When does the picture open?
Well, it opens around the first of the year, Steve. I certainly hope you can make it.
Yeah, well, I hope I live to see it.
And he says, say, do you know how to get to Griffith Park? And I said, gee, I'm terribly sorry I don't. And the guy says, well, you go 3 blocks straight ahead, turn left.
What made you say I was 39? Well, I've got your quarter. Let's both be happy.
So jet propulsion is somewhat like this.
Happy anniversary! A television set? Yeah.
For us?
Yes.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're going to rock around the clock tonight.
There had never been a time quite like it, when cars grew fins, guys grew ducktails, and the baby boom just grew and grew. It was the era of bobby socks, Brill cream, bandstand, and Elvis. The blush of innocence, the promise of industry. History set not in stone, but chrome. The 50s would imprint America as no other decade before. But in this city in 1950, even big screen 3D was no competition for small screen TV, and the birth of Channel 4, a Nashville institution.
I guess the summer of 50, this started to break and we began to hear things about WSM. We prepared ourselves.
Robert Burgess was 21, newly drafted, waiting for a call to Korea, and waiting to see a picture on the family's new television set.
All we could get was a test pattern, but we watched the test pattern.
Watching the test pattern every night, we watched the test pattern. I guess maybe we thought that somebody was going to push a switch somewhere and we were going to see something.
Dolores Harris had just graduated from North Nashville High School. Her dad bought one of the first sets in the neighborhood.
But it was mostly cabinet, I can tell you that. I can remember that. It was just this little black thing with the 14-inch in the middle. And, of course, it was more cabinet than anything else with the rabbit ears sitting up on the top of it, you know.
And they sold for like $500, $600, $700, $800. And I'm sure there was a very select group of people that at the beginning bought TV.
Robert Eskin should know. He was the first wholesale distributor of TVs in Nashville. He took a chance on a product many considered a passing fad.
I think at some point they knew it was going to work. I think why they were dubious was, is it going to work here? Is it going to work in my house? Am I going to spend $700, $800 and get a lot of snow on a piece of glass?
A good question. The same question being asked by top management at WSM.
And I remember Mr. E.W. Craig, who was the father of WSM radio and television, coming back from New York and telling us all around the studio that he didn't really see too much for the future in that television thing, a real jerky, squeaky little picture on a 8-inch tube.
This picture was recorded and synchronized with sound in the General Electric Company's House of Magic at Schenectady, New York.
TV wasn't the invention of any one man, and it was hardly an overnight sensation. Earliest experimentation with the concept dates back to the late 1800s. But it wasn't until the 1920s that the technology to make TV possible had really arrived. A Russian immigrant named Vladimir Zworykin perfected the first all-electronic system, but he had a tough time selling his boss on the costly research.
Later on, I found out that what he said was, put his guy to work on something more useful.
Holy smokes, does it work?
Of course.
In 1939, television took center stage at the World's Fair in New York.
Oh, is it going?
It's on.
Hiya, folks. This is Clark Gable Middleton speaking. As you can see if you've got your television sets turned on.
World War II put mass production on hold, but by 1945, television began to dominate domestic life. Within the next 5 years, the number of sets nationwide increased from 10,000 to 12 million. When WSM TV signed on the air in 1950, there were 98 television stations in America.
Louisville was on the air, as I said, and so was Atlanta and so on. And the problem there was, can you make money out of television? This was the real problem.
And Jack DeWitt really didn't have the answer. An engineering genius, DeWitt worked his college summers helping to install broadcast systems at WSM Radio. That was the mid-20s. By 1946, he was president of WSM Incorporated, in charge of TV, faced with a huge technical problem and just 6 months to fix it.
The problem there was that the phone company would not bring in the programs for us because we were only one station in Nashville. They would have to put in a microwave relay system or coaxial cable to bring in the programs from the closest point, which is Louisville.
So DeWitt and his crew figured out a complicated system of hopscotching the broadcast signal 170 miles through a series of towers in the Kentucky countryside to the living rooms of Nashville.
You won't believe what I'm going to tell you. The total cost of the TV station and the microwave system was $600,000. That's what it was.
When they came on air, the first thing I remember was Mr. Otis Devine, who gave some sort of presentation at the beginning.
Good afternoon. This is Channel 4, WSM TV in Nashville, Tennessee, signing on the air.
Oh, the folks all know that Harvey's has it, what you want, exactly as it ought to be. Harvey's has it, you can see. Harvey's has it.
Mr. Harvey, Fred Harvey, bought 15 minutes. He wanted to be the first commercial TV sponsor in Nashville, so he bought the first program and had Dottie Dillard and Owen Bradley as accompaniment.
I knew a song called Cotton Candy and a Toy Balloon. So I made some cotton candy up out of cotton, and I got a toy balloon on a stick, and I sang the chorus.
Cotton candy and a toy balloon on a sunny Sunday afternoon.
And then the band played the instrumental, and while the band was playing an instrumental, a fly came and landed on my nose, and my hands were both busy, and I couldn't think of how I was going to get the fly off of my nose, so I just went like this. And Red O'Donnell the next day said everybody in Nashville got up to shoo the fly off of the screen. They thought
that fly was just the first of many bugs. The feature presentation was yet to come. From the gridiron, Notre Dame versus North Carolina.
Notre Dame came back fighting in the second half. Bill Barrett out down the sidelines to produce 3.
The picture broke up in the middle of the game, but Robert Burgess remembers something more important.
And it was during this time that my grandfather was sitting to my left, and I happened to glance at him, and he was crying. And I thought, I wonder why he's crying. What is it that affected him so? We were just watching a football game. And it was later that day or that evening when I looked back, I realized that here was a man who was 70 years old and seen a lot of history, and this made some sort of an impact on him. Literally, we were eyewitnesses to history sitting watching that come into this community.
That was the kickoff of a whole new life for everybody, really. I mean, it absolutely changed everybody's life.
Early viewers were treated to a lot of westerns and, yes, Pro wrestling was around even then, but it was the local programming that sealed the station's popularity. You're looking at the earliest moving pictures in the history of WSM-TV. Home movies shot behind the scenes in 1951 by the station's first cameraman, Sid O'Berry.
And in these scenes, Jim Sanders, who played Rough and Ready, who hosted the cowboy western movie every day. And on the left, we have Red Foley, bless his heart. The station always took advantage of personalities visiting the town, like Tex Ritter, here pictured with Minnie Pearl. This is David Cobb and Ed Sullivan. And you will notice coming up, this is Jimmy Wakely singing with the fantastic Anita Kerr, the lady with perfect musical pitch. Lovely Kathy Copas and her famous father, Cowboy Copas. Oh, Dave Overton, our sports announcer, comic relief. I love June Carter. And did you notice Mother Maybelle up there and her sister? And the guitarist on the right is the fantastic Chet Atkins.
But if you ask the studio crew, their all-time favorites were the cooking shows, complete with gourmet leftovers. The best-known queen of cuisine was Phyla Rawlings-Hawk, host of Kitchen College.
First time I'd ever used an electric mixer on television. And the spatula caught in it, and all the egg white came coming out and got all over my face. And there I was on television.
Phyla introduced some of the first ethnic food to those watching at home. She was one of the pioneer flight attendants and had traveled all over the world. When she wasn't in the air, she was on the air.
TV was a friend. TV was a friend to the lonely. It was a playmate for the child. It was a companion for the homemaker who stayed at home. Most of all, TV was a friend.
I rocked and I rolled and I skipped with a smile. I done the you bang your storm, you bang your style.
Come on in. The Coke Dance Party's underway here in the studios of WSM TV.
The 50s were kind of an innocent, sweet time, and great music and good times. Jerry Chrisman, that was the guy with the...
Oh, look here, there we are, right
there. Front and center, in the crew cut and tight sweater.
Who are those people?
Hey, and I was skinny like that.
You were skinny.
It was 1956, and those people were Ron Scott and Marianne Booker Leach. Dedicated dance partners, sometimes sweethearts, and guests on WSM's Coke Dance Party and 5 o'clock Hop. Channel 4's answer to Bandstand, it was on the air even before Dick Clark.
Ruth Early and Doug Conwell.
Oh, that's Ruth and Doug.
The Hop gave local teens a daily dose of the spotlight. In fact, the show became so popular, the kids traveled as a troupe all over the state and competed for all those great prizes back in the studio.
And if so, our gal will be well equipped with the loveliest piece of luggage from the Nashville Trunk and Bag Company.
Thank you very much. Now, everybody to the dance floor. Dance for the prize and for the fun. Cecil picks out the winner. Okay, here we go.
You had that little swing down. You had that little thing where you were kind of doing that little number. Look at here. And I would have to sing the song.
The TV was a big deal then, really. It's amazing to think that all of that started, you know, when we were kids. And now in our children's generation, or mine, it's just taken for granted, and video games, and all that goes with that technology is just, it's incredible to believe in one lifetime that's happened.
Before the 50s were over, WSM would experience its worst tragedy. A new $100,000 broadcast tower, 1,200 feet high, was nearly complete when it collapsed in 1957, killing 4 men.
The man in charge of the erection of the tower was really not competent, it turned out, to do it. He had 4 men on the tower tightening bolts and working on it, and was at the same time adjusting the guy wires on the tower. And the tower collapsed because of the adjustment of the guy wires. He just pulled the tower down, is what he did, and killed those 4 men.
To DeWitt, those 4 lives were the greatest loss the station would ever experience. After all, WSM was owned and operated by National Life, an insurance company, the very symbol of safety and protection. So the 60s began with a promise to keep future towers a safe distance from homes and schools, and with the realization that WSM had made the right decision. This box of wires and tubes was truly man's most powerful creation.
We were in it. We'd gotten in it knowingly, and our idea was to succeed. That was it. And we did. We did it.
Happy and Grandpa Moses were very hot. I mean, we really, in Nashville, we had a big following. I mean, everywhere we went, we drew big crowds, and we were in demand. We did a lot of benefits and a lot of good paying jobs. I mean, we were very, very popular.
Ricky, wait a minute. Let's not watch television tonight.
Not watch television? I feel that your face is reasonably familiar to the public. Is that correct?
Well, sir, I just don't know.
Stronger than dirt. What time is it? Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. I have a dream. The Beatles, bring them on.
With one blow, Andy, we can take that hand and split a plank.
No, you can't.
Yeah, split a brick.
No.
It's only you.
Daddy? Where'd I come from?
Well, let's see. First off,
Are you through flapping your trap? Because if you are, I got something to tell you.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout.
The wildest imaginations couldn't have hatched the real-life happenings of the 60s. Change, fast and furious. There was fashion, the long and short of it, and Beatlemania spread like the measles. We marched for civil rights and against war. We came together in grief and glory. Television made sure we didn't miss a moment in living color or instant replay. The training wheels were off this new technology. WSM TV was 10 years old.
No one really said, I want to be a newscaster, I want to be an anchorman, or I want to be a cameraman, or I want to be a news producer. We didn't know what those people were.
By 1960, everyone in Nashville knew who Judd Collins was. He'd been on the air 10 years. As far as they were concerned, he was Mr. Television, Mr. Truth, Mr. Trust.
It was primitive compared to what's state of the art today. We went on the air with a 15-minute newscast, as I remember. 10 o'clock at night. There was no 6 o'clock news. The 15 minutes included news, weather, and sports.
There are some 2,000 reasons why scores of Middle Tennesseans are keeping an anxious eye on the Gulf Coast tonight.
Our first newscast was called Views of the News, and for some reason or other we progressed into a sponsorship by Esso. Men from McCann Erickson Advertising came in here to select the Esso reporter. And a group of us auditioned, sat down and read news for him. So he selected me as the Esso reporter, and they had to have an alternate, so they selected Ralph Christian. The designation was SOA and SOB.
And he was all right, except for the next 5 or 10 years when I walked on the set, everyone said, well, here comes the SOB.
Though he's been off the air nearly 20 years, Ralph Christian is still identified with Channel 4 and with Judd. Together, they christened a new baby, the television newscast.
When we did a newscast, we did it all. Oh, you had the sound on film, and but you had very few live remotes in those days.
No, we have no idea. It was fully involved when we arrived on the scene, and the people.
We were determined to bring to Nashville the best that we could.
Often that involved a quick trip to the airport.
Something happened in New York or Washington before noon. It was photographed by Movie Tone News in those days. And the film was processed and put on an American Airlines plane that went from New York to Washington to Nashville. One of my duties was at about 8:30 every night was to go to the old Nashville airport, wait for an American Airlines plane to stop rolling, and as the door went down and opened up, a very accommodating stewardess would throw a box out the door. And if I was lucky, I caught it because we were in a tremendous press for time.
But in March of 1960, a huge news story was unfolding right across town with no time to spare.
And the prisoners have literally just raised Cain. They have ignited their mattresses and their blankets.
2 convicts were holding 18 hostages at the main prison.
After I got there, seeing the magnitude of what was happening and the fact that it wasn't going to be quickly resolved, found that the engineers were already keyed in, and they were making plans to do a live remote from there.
In time, Judd Collins would convince the governor to allow television cameras inside the prison. WSM would stay on the air all night and most of the next day.
Possible. This is the first time, ladies and gentlemen, in the history of the penal system of this country, that live television cameras have been allowed inside the prison so that you might sit in on a situation such as the one that we have here today.
I did not talk all of that time. I think I did most of that by myself. Ralph was there. Most of that probably was a combination of Ralph and me, and there was a lot of silence. I remember Irving Waugh told me by telephone, he said, I know you're talked out, you've been talking over there for 4, 5, 6 hours. He says, why don't you see if the camera can tell the story? So I took about an hour hiatus and went to the mess hall and came back, and they were just panning the prison, panning the location, and that told the story.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're now looking for the moment where we've been waiting for since 3:30 yesterday afternoon.
We did not realize at that time what a history-making thing that would be in Nashville television, but I think it was.
Be back to visit with you later on, but right now, let's head for Purina's Grand Ole Opry.
By the 60s, the station that was building a news reputation already had one in entertainment. The Purina Grand Ole Opry, broadcast nationwide, originated from the studios of WSM. The Nashville sound went national. Then, in June of 1963, a popular nighttime DJ took a try at morning television.
There was no programming prior to the Today Show. They needed a lead-in for the Today Show. What they did, they took, I don't know, 20 or 30 Opry stars, and they got a special rate from the Musicians Union, and they cut 10 songs apiece with each one and then built us a library. It was nothing fancy, just stand up and sing.
Just the country hicks way down in the sticks, back where I was born.
The videos weren't too classy, but they worked. That went on for over a year until I felt like we had just about seen on these videos all I could stand, and I wondered if the audience could stand to see them anymore, and so I went to work on Irving Waugh to get a band, and I would sneak a band in.
All this, plus the latest news and weather.
Soon the band was hired and the show renamed.
I'm the star of the show, yes. Don't you forget it. All of you.
Good morning and welcome to our show.
But despite its title, The Ralph Emery Show has always been a team effort, complete with cheerleaders.
Maud and Dorothy Paul, and they are the Paul sisters, P-A-U-L, do not work for Channel 4 despite rumors. But they are the most loyal fans in the world. They've been coming to this television station on a regular basis since 1965.
That I was walking by.
And as to why, I don't know, unless they decided they wanted to be close to somebody. Then we made them stars, and that gave them reasons, because we put, you know, we've had Maud and Dorothy on singing and doing all sorts of things.
Well, when I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns, but I shot a man in Reno.
Other local and national stars would shine in that early morning hour. Bob Olson enjoyed a 14-year career at Channel 4, first as a weatherman and later the action news reporter.
Ralph letters, you know. There's not a thing in the world for us to be concerned about today. I'll just show you
Charlie,
the forecast.
Don't let me interrupt you, Dick. Charlie.
You're interrupting me, Ralph.
Would you get
I was sort of a second banana for Ralph, the first of the people who did the news and the weather on that program, and when Ralph wasn't there, I'd fill in for Ralph. It was a different kind of show in the beginning. First of all, the artists, it was not staffed with staff performers, the singers that you have on there now, but rather we would, on every show, there would be an artist of some renown. One of Ralph's closest friends was Marty Robbins, and Marty would come by at least 4 or 5 times a year. Roger Miller was by all the time in the early days.
Red Sabbath, 2 hours, pushing broom buys an 8 by 12 4-bit.
Nobody has beaten us in 17 years in the morning. That's what I'm proud of.
King of the road. We're so glad to see you. Been wondering how you've been. Everybody's feeling fine. Let's run again.
And WSM produced another country show that scored big ratings nationally, a Saturday night fixture of the 60s, starring Porter Wagner and his spangled suits.
Wagner Show. We're glad to have you all join us today. Another day, another dollar.
The people were really scared of television at that time because the theory was, if they see you on television, they won't buy tickets. That was what their thoughts was in the early days.
But reality was quite the opposite. TV not only sold more records for Porter, it made him a household name and a colorful character.
We really looked forward to that because my suits all looked about alike, you know, like in the black and white. And then when we got color, the opening of every show, you know, in living color, the Porter Wagner Show, that was a big thing then. But it did help our show a lot.
Starring Porter Wagner, Dolly Parton.
I think that they've always tried to program what people in this marketplace want.
And at the lunch hour, 5 days a week, the people wanted noon.
Having a big homecoming spaghetti supper precedes the NBA Springfield football game. And I thought you would like to know about that.
There's nothing stuffy about noon. The people were the important thing, the people that we had working with us.
People like the late Barbara Moore and a young guy who played piano in Printer's Alley and for $20 a week crooned on noon.
Mostly old standards. I'm in the mood for love, and, you know, you must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. I mean, all those old turkeys. I sang those kinds of things.
You a good singer?
I got by. My problem was if I was singing a Sinatra song, I tried to sound like Sinatra. If I was singing a Eddie Fisher, I tried to sound like... I never really had my own style. I think that was my problem. But you know, it did all right.
The days of wine and roses.
Teddy Bart was singing The Days of Wine and Roses on November 22nd, 1963. News photographer Bob Manning was about to go to lunch.
And I decided to walk over to the bank of wire machines that we had and read them.
He walked right to the desk, I remember, and handed me that news bulletin which said Flash. You don't see that often. Flash, Dallas, President Kennedy shot.
Stayed with it about 5-6 minutes, and the network took it about 1:45 our time. And we went upstairs and watched TV, and that's where we saw that he was dead.
Here now are late, unedited, unscreened films of the shooting scene in Dallas. This is the scene of confusion. Something has happened here. The cameraman running toward the scene to the presidential car ahead of him. We caught just a blurred glance of the old school depository building from which the sniper fired the shot. This is the reaction from the crowd.
More than any other event, the Kennedy tragedy secured television's role as our premier source for information. TV pulled the nation together. For days, there were no commercials or entertainment programs. On Sunday morning, 2 days after the president's death, accused assassin Lee Harvey Oswald was being transferred from one jail to another. At 11:20, NBC cut live to Dallas, and millions watched as Oswald was shot and killed.
He's been shot. He's been shot. Lee Oswald has been shot.
It's a little different when you're looking through the viewfinder on a camera. It's somewhat impersonal, but you try for it to be somewhat impersonal so it doesn't run you nuts.
Bob Manning's camera gave Nashvillians a front row seat to history. John F. Kennedy's speech at Vanderbilt just 6 months before his death. The magical Christmas nativity at Centennial Park. The peaceful civil rights demonstrations that took a violent turn. The trial of Jimmy Hoffa that nearly turned a courtroom into a sparring ring. And Governor Clement's monumental announcement in 1965 that saved the lives of men on death row.
I have thought about this and I've prayed over it, and I'm commuting all of your sentences from death in the electric chair to 99 years in prison.
I used to always look out of the corner of my eye, and I kept seeing this one person's hands, you know, out of the corner of my eye doing this through the bars. When they started the loud chanting and praying, that's when I said, boy, this is it, and I just went right to that guy.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Nearly 25 years later, we can relive that moment through the magic of television. But that magic was constantly improving, and the 60s saw many WSM milestones. In 1963, the station moved from its old location at 15th and Compton to Nob Hill in West Nashville. In 1964, the first weather satellite pictures broadcast anywhere in the country were broadcast on WSM. Channel 4 was first to go to color in 1965. And in about 1967, videotape arrived.
Oh, it's those little candy things with things written on them, like...
I guess that videotape revolutionized the television business more than any other one single item. Because before that, there was no way to immediately record and have ready for immediate playback.
Martin Luther King Jr. was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee, shot in the face as he stood alone on the balcony of his hotel room.
And the late 60s brought more tragedy in instant replay. Martin Luther King was killed in April of '68. Nearly 2 months to the day later, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. By that time, Al Vax had established himself as a top anchor and reporter at Channel 4.
I got to cover both the Democratic and Republican conventions in 1968. The Republican convention was a dream. It was a vacation in Miami Beach. The Democratic convention in Chicago was something else. Something that this country should be totally ashamed of. Oh, I was scared to death. I really was.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
But this is how we all remember saying goodbye to the 60s, when we said hello to the moon.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Ironically, it was in that same year that Channel 4 hired its biggest star. He was doing the weather in Columbia, South Carolina, and joined Channel 4 as a sort of utility player.
I don't know why management asked me, but they said, what are your ideas on your replacement? And I said, you know, there's a new guy who's just come in from South Carolina, and he does booth work. He's the guy who says, this is Channel 4 Nashville, and I think he does weekend weather. I think the guy's great. You ought to put him on. A guy named Dan Miller.
With the same sort of Southern charm and easy manner, Dan Miller would continue what Judd Collins began nearly 20 years earlier.
I didn't perceive myself as an heir apparent. I worked with Judd. I anchored the news with Judd some, and I admired Judd a great deal. He was Mr. Television when I came to Nashville. And no, I in no way perceived that I would be an heir apparent to as the primary newscaster there. I didn't think I would last over 6 months. You know.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
The following program is brought to you in WSM Color.
Life ain't easy for a boy named Sue.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore.
Oh my, wow! No, you won't, but don't push me. Take your hands off of me unless you plan to arrest me. You got spunk.
Well,
I hate spunk.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
Balls it deep, deep. It is gone. He did it.
Its naturally sweet taste reminds me of wild hickory nuts.
D is for everybody.
We are two wild and crazy guys.
Memories of the 70s, faded but not forgotten. Vietnam, gas lines, the 18.5-minute gap. Disco was the craze then that predated rap. It's when Huntley said goodbye to Brinkley. Nixon said goodbye to the presidency. Television, once a novelty, was a necessity. And so too was change at WSM.
Because there are those of us in the business of radio and television. When I was 50 years old, I thought that was time that I got off the television and started moving in some other directions. That was a mistake. I made a mistake, and it's something that I would correct if I ever had the opportunity, but it's too late for that. I thought I had done all I could do. I had been at it and really had sort of burned out.
The most visible change came early in the decade with the departure of Judd Collins from the news and from Noon.
I could see the spark that Teddy had and the feel for showmanship, a gifted singer. I knew that Teddy could do that, and I don't know whether this is important. I recommended him for the job.
May 7th, 1970, I was told that I would be the host of the Noon Show. And you couldn't have said anything. I mean, if I had won an Academy Award or been elected president or something, I would not have had more joy than when I got that show. It's what I wanted.
And what the audience wanted was something different. By now, a generation of Nashvillians had grown up with television. They expected more.
There was a more aggressive press, and there was a more aggressive television, and there was a more aggressive way of asking a question. And that interested me. And so I moved the show, I shouldn't say we moved the show slowly, but in a subtle way, more towards being issue-oriented.
In the newsroom, a similar spirit was taking hold. Veteran Bob Olson was tapped in 1970 to become the aggressive action news reporter.
Was this the first recap you had put on here?
This is the second recap.
What happened to the first one?
A huge knot came on the side of it after driving on it for 2 days.
The whole action concept of being an advocate for somebody in the audience who had a problem, and then you try and solve it using the influence of television, and I would hope, sound investigative techniques.
Now, how does he stay up there?
I don't know how you stay up there, but you don't never fall off.
A little different technique was required for the happy features Nashville began to see, reported by a kid fresh out of college.
I didn't know what I was doing when I came to work for Channel 4. I had no training, no background. They gave me a camera and a microphone and said, do it. There had never been anything like this on television before. So I think they were an instant success only because it was something so new and such a radical departure from what the news had been.
So we changed the way that we did news.
Though Channel 4 already had the only hour-long newscast in town, it was news director Mike Kettering's philosophy that made the most of that hour.
I wanted to produce long stories rather than short stories, and I wanted to produce analytic stories. I wanted to tell people about not only what was going on in their community, but why it was going on.
But we really were understanding not only the power of television news, but the responsibility of television news.
Good evening, I'm Dan Miller, and tonight on The Scene at 6, Channel 4 News has learned that the scene of 2 recent child abuse cases was used by the Corrections Department as a foster home.
Tesh brought the first new way of thinking about news to Channel 4.
I was 22 years old, just turned 22 at the time, and so I just wanted to go out and conquer the world and do all these, investigative pieces. And Miller was always the guy that was calming me down. And when Mike Kettering, the news director at the time, got there, he was the one that pretty much taught me everything I knew about journalism.
Though he'd stayed just 2 years, John Tesh remembers them as the most important and the craziest years of his early career.
It keeps sticking in my mind. I lived in Bellevue. Yeah, which is in New York. That's a mental hospital, so I don't know how that works. But I lived in Bellevue, and Miller and I would go out a lot of time and raise heck.
Weatherman Pat Sajak made it a threesome. But unlike the newsmen, Pat didn't have to be serious on the air. A good example was the early morning Job Mart, a TV version of the want ads.
Series of these things, and I always thought, if I were looking for a job, I wouldn't be up at 5:55 watching television. So I never knew why I was doing this. So eventually I just started goofing around with it. It sounds stupid to say now, but for example, I'd come on and I'd start screaming the jobs, or I would sink in my chair until at the end of the thing my head was gone. Or if I read a good job, I'd fold it up and put it in my pocket, and I just acted silly. And no one ever said a word, which confirmed that no one was watching. Until one day the program director, a man named Elmer Alley, walked in to the booth where I was working and said, he was a very low-key guy, and he said, I don't know if you've ever looked at the program log, but Job Market is not listed as comedy.
And I did something. This is legitimate, folks. I wrote a script for us. You just read.
All scripted.
You've not seen this, right?
Pat was so spontaneous and so rebellious and so mischievous that it was an adventure for him to come out there at night. I never knew what he was going to do.
Well, where's Boyce tonight, Pat?
He's taking the day off today, Dan, but he'll be back tomorrow.
Well, it's great having you here. You're one of the most talented broadcasters in the country, and you're a real asset to this show.
Gosh, Dan, you didn't have to say that.
There was something about working with those guys and Sajak where a look or a phrase or a set-up situation, not intentionally, we could really relate. A lot of times we would probably laugh and break up on the air more than I have ever done with anyone else.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Eels, inviting you to stay tuned now to...
Paul Eels spent 12 years on the WSM sports desk. He's been gone just as long. But Nashville has never forgotten his wit, nor his catchphrase.
Holy smokes.
Holy smokes! Holy smokes!
I used the expression probably at the end of the game as Vanderbilt won it on a last-second shot, and someone made mention of it and liked it, and I used it a few more times, and all of a sudden it became kind of a trademark.
Paul, and I mean this in the best sense of the word, he's a sweet man. I mean, there just isn't anything about Paul Eels that anyone could not possibly like. He's a wonderful human being. And it came across on the air.
Simply put, good people made for good television. And there was plenty of both at WSM in the 1970s.
Well, nice to have you with us. Rudy Kalis is here with the sports.
Dan, as long as he's on the road, we'll talk about it. The Vanderbilt Commodores are in Gainesville, Florida.
I was a news reporter and a sports reporter, hired for both. It took him about 6 months to realize this boy doesn't know anything about news.
And this is live, folks. As you say, we're going to try something. I'm going to get in behind with Darryl, and he's going to take us around the Nashville Speedway. And
Rudy Kalis came from Green Bay, Wisconsin in 1974.
And from the first day I came here, everybody said, be yourself. There's something in every single one of us that makes us unique.
like that one-of-a-kind weatherman who arrived at WSM a few months earlier.
We had people now in the street will stop me and says, "How do you folks get along so well up there?" And I have no idea. But, you know, I tell them we're blessed. I think we've been blessed over the years with that chemistry between the people they bring in here.
When I decided I wanted to get into television, Channel 4 is the only place that I had in mind that I wanted to be.
Born and raised in Middle Tennessee, Sharon Puckett arrived straight out of college. Through the years, viewers have watched their hometown girl grow up, even become a mother.
How's the baby? And to this very day, Andrew is 7, almost 7.5 now, and people will say, "How's your baby?" Because he's not a baby anymore. He's 7 years old. He's playing baseball. He's in 2nd grade. He's doing all these things, and they're so surprised.
Getting a job on television was beyond my wildest dreams.
In '73, the noon show reflected the changing times by adding a female co-host. But women still had a way to go in Nashville TV.
The first 2 years that I was on that program, every time Teddy took a vacation, they did not allow me to host the show by myself. I had to have a male co-host.
The woman's role on the show needed to be upgraded. Not only because of the feminist movement, but just it needed to be. Like co-anchors in news today, where there is parity. Same thing on a show like that.
From Channel 4 News, this is The Scene at 6.
Good evening, I'm Carol Marine. 3 years later, in 1976, WSM added its first ever female news anchor, a woman who would make an indelible mark on the city and on the state.
And wanted to take a chance because I knew we had such strength in Dan Miller as an anchor that I was willing to take a chance at that time on a woman who had very, very little experience as an anchor to bring in her strength of reporting, and it worked terrifically.
There was a feeling early in the 70s that women reporters should be talking to the wives of politicians. When I carved out a prison beat, which I started carving out when I was in Knoxville, I did so that nobody would have any doubt that I was a serious person.
It was January 8th, 1977, less than a year after Clayton Dawson had had his sentence commuted. He came to
Boy, did it work. Carol uncovered literally hundreds of stories questioning the state prison system and the Board of Pardons and Paroles. In the end, all the reports, all the investigation, boiled down to 16.5 minutes live on The Scene at 6.
Thank you for coming, Governor.
It's a pleasure.
First and foremost, the case of Roger Humphreys.
When we did the Roger Humphreys story on this young man who you probably know who was a convicted double murderer who ended up being the state photographer with press credentials and with credit cards, etc. When we did that story, suddenly we got a call from Blanton's people saying the governor is willing to be interviewed on this. And we were rather stunned, and it was a live interview.
So let's don't confuse the facts. Just stick with the facts and we'll be all right.
We set up bleachers, newspaper reporters were there, department heads were there, state troopers were there. I mean, it was clear that Blanton's people felt that there was going to be something happen here and that Blanton was going to take care of Carol Marine.
And I remember the last piece of advice I gave to Carol before she went on the air. I said, "Carol, I know you well." I said, "Now you're going to be fair, that's a given. You're going to be tough, that's a given. Be a reporter. This is not a debate. You ask questions."
No, Governor. What I'm asking you is, looking at his file and looking at the way...
No, you're not asking, you're telling me. Now, ask me a question, I'll respond to it.
As I said, Governor.
I said ask and I'll respond. It's just that simple.
She asked the tough questions. She was impeccably fair. She was the consummate reporter. And Ray Blanton got so flustered that he lost control of himself.
Let me explain it to you simple enough where you can understand it.
And the question was, wasn't this a political patronage kind of hiring? Wasn't this a special kind of justice?
Now, can you understand that?
In politics?
No. You asked me why. I've just given you 4 reasons why. You want 10 more?
Thank you very much for being with us, Governor Blanton.
When the interview was over, I wasn't really sure what had happened.
It took a day, and it took reflections on it in the newspaper for it to really hit us exactly what had happened there. But the confrontation was not to sound trite, but it was good television. It was, and that, but we were all winded. Our hearts were pounding, and it's hard to describe what we felt, but we didn't know at that moment exactly what had happened.
In an historic move, the first of its kind in Tennessee, Governor Ray Blanton has been removed from office by the early swearing in of Governor-elect Lamar Alexander.
I'm saddened and hurt for the state of Tennessee.
You know, the irony is, for as negatively as I believe the governor felt about me as a reporter, I think that he unwittingly did more for my career than probably any individual did before or has since.
The city's most extensive search ended today when Marcia's body was found in a garage at 4007 Estes Road, only a short distance from her home.
But the Blanton story wasn't the only big event of the 70s. The murder of Marcia Trimble a few years earlier would remain unsolved.
They said she had apparently been strangled and struck on the head.
And there was Waverly.
Waverly literally exploded. An entire town exploded when that gas tanker car went up in flames.
Convicted assassin James Earl Ray escaped. The death of Elvis focused worldwide attention on Tennessee, and Hurricane Frederick dumped a deadly amount of rain on Music City. Yet ask people what story they remember most. Better yet, ask Huell Hauser.
I have this theory that when I die, my tombstone is going to say, Huell Hauser, he did the pig story.
The tip was too good to be true. A 500-pound pig who lived with a Kentucky family indoors. Huell was there for Porky's birthday party. Unfortunately, he also covered the funeral.
And we talked about this for hours before the news, saying, you know, please, let's keep our composure and do this well. Of course, the moment I said something about it on the air, Miller lost it completely.
Porky went on a journey. A journey. He went on a journey. He died. Yeah, he died. This is awful. I mean, we're sorry about Porky dying.
Porky's passing turned out to be a laughing matter, but there were other, more tearful goodbyes. Huell himself left in 1979 for New York City.
That 10 years at WSM was a wonderful, absolutely priceless experience that I still carry with me all the time.
Pat Sajak took his act west to Los Angeles. For Paul Eels, the allure was big-time college football in Little Rock, Arkansas. And Channel 4 devoted nearly half the newscast to saying goodbye.
I'm going to miss you, pal. Best of luck.
When I got through looking at it, I thought I was watching my obituary.
But Paul's replacement wasted no time livening things up.
Take a shot over there. They got to see this. Charlie lassoed this animal.
And we were free to do what we felt was fun and also at the same time professional.
Since you've been gone, I try to forget.
You were free to be yourself. I mean, it's obvious that you dressed yourself.
Well, in the dark sometimes, but I'd always dressed that way. And it got attention here, and I really didn't mean for it to get attention, though it was nice because people would send me in sport coats. Wives would send me in sport coats that their husbands were given and they thought were hideous, and they'd send them to me, and I even on the air one time said, I wear a 40 regular. If you're going to send them to me, get close to my size, please.
From that first day at Opryland, we got along great.
When Lonnie Lardner got the call to audition for Carol Marine's job, she was ready for a hard-hitting interview.
And they took me to Opryland for the day, and we went on rides and things. And I thought, what are they doing? What's the point? If this is what Nashville life is like, I'm in.
We wanted somebody who looked a little different and with a different approach. And Lonnie brought in a freshness that just jumped out at us the minute we saw her tape.
You might say Lonnie was the heir apparent.
So we sit down to take billboard pictures, and this is after I'm hired, the contract is signed, and Kettering comes down to the billboard session, and he says, the hair has to go. And I had a big mane, sort of like what I have now, and I just burst out into tears. I mean, you know, it was my identity at 22, you know. I must say, I think Mike was right, because his theory was that it was a distraction. And it probably was.
Yeah, but here it is still long, and you still got it.
Well, I don't work for him anymore.
So with the help of a few bobby pins, Lonnie and Channel 4 were ready for the 80s.
The Bible is inexhaustible in its resources for information. As I said to a friend of mine, the reason our programs last, we have the best writer.
You're watching Channel 4, WSMV, Nashville.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear.
It was you, Kristen.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
Putting on a woman's dress? That's funny.
The way he does it, it is.
Oh.
Hey, you know, we just drove 750 miles across the desert with your food, and it occurred to us that there wouldn't be world hunger if you people would live where the food is!
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Have you ever had a client?
What, you mean at this particular location?
Unfortunately, a lot of Americans don't believe that anymore.
I'm pre-med.
Pre-med. Whoa.
Here's the deal. I completely forgot about it. Look, it's Wednesday night. Wednesday night is dog night here in the control room.
But I just want you to know, you won't be alone. I'll be watching you.
The 80s seemed so distant when George Orwell penned his vision. Ours was royalty, loyalty, a belated welcome home, shots on the street, shock in the sky, and more than once the question, why? Uncle Walter signed off, CNN signed on, and someone shot JR. And in Nashville, Tennessee, WSM would lose more than one of its stars.
Noon was at the top. It was really the most popular. The ratings were good. The audience were good. We had changed the set. A lot of wonderful things were happening.
But what was about to happen had never happened before. A wholesale talent raid launched by Channel 2. Among the targets, the stars of the noon show.
And they came to me, Teddy likes to say, with an offer we couldn't refuse, and that was really the bottom line. There was considerably more money offered, a lot more freedom.
I've always wanted to stretch and do new things, and that was a chance to do that.
It wasn't a great way to start the 80s, losing two top names to the competition and losing Noon, an established Channel 4 tradition. The viewers spoke loud and clear.
If I have to take a long trip and need to stay up, I read those letters because they keep you up. I mean, they were, how could you do this, Teddy, after all these years, how could you go over there? I mean, it was almost as if I had, you know, gone to an alien place. It was another television station, but I didn't anticipate that.
Live from the studios of WSMV, this is Channel 4 Magazine.
I had expressed interest when Teddy Bart left. Of course, I didn't have the look, so I'm sure that was one of the drawbacks.
With your hosts, Charlie Chase and Sharon Puckett.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to
Charlie Chase was primarily a radio man at WSM. But like Teddy years before, he was given a chance with a new show called Channel 4 Magazine.
Right, okay. And it was kind of a new experiment. It was an experiment, an adventure. Mike Kettering often referred to it as a laboratory, where you try new things. And we came on with a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement, and it showed for you.
We have as our guest this morning Charles Givens, a financial wizard and an entrepreneur. I had a lot of fun on that show. I learned a lot.
After several co-hosts, Sharon Puckett moved from the news desk to that comfortable couch and never regretted it.
It's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. The absolute best thing that I think that could have happened. Because it taught me so many things. that I could not learn sitting behind a desk reading the news. It taught me to be me.
I wanted a closed set with no people around there that didn't have to be there. I wanted a comfortable setting. I thought people always are comfortable in a restaurant talking. So I wanted just to have conversations. Good evening. Welcome to our show.
What Nashville got was one of a kind, Miller and Company, a cozy, comfortable talk show without film clips or plugs or pretense. Some big names shared a cup of coffee with Dan, and a lot more.
Anyway, I'm not here to talk about you. We're here to talk about me.
That's right, and you're quite a guy, too.
I put myself right away with that. I didn't know where to go with that.
The man really does not have an ego like that. What do you put on your tax form where it says occupation?
I don't know how many people over the years, national celebrities, would come up to me after having been interviewed by Dan Miller and say, it was the best interview I ever had. And I would say, well, why? And the answer was always the same, because he relaxed me, because I didn't feel threatened by him.
Yet one of the most memorable shows didn't involve a single guest and didn't sit too well with management.
Like this idea. They thought I had gone crazy. In fact, later, Mike Kettering would not let me rerun this thing. But so I came on, I said, this is for all you people who don't have a fireplace. And so for 22 minutes, we just put the camera on a fireplace. We had no music, we had no audio, we did no edits. And then we faded out, and I came back and I said good night. And I got 2 letters from people who said that they were naming their kid after me, that the fireplace meant a lot to them.
It's those spur-of-the-moment thoughts that can make TV entertaining and unpredictable. George Goldtrap, a Channel 4 weekend weatherman, came up with an unbeatable gimmick.
We didn't have all the electronic gadgetry and the wizardry that you have, so we drew on blackboards with chalk, drill high, etc. At the end of during the program, I would juggle the chalk in my hand back and forth. And the producer said one day, that's distracting. You ought to put it up, do something with it. And because I was a juggler just as a hobby, I pitched it up and caught it in my pocket.
That's AccuWeather. By George.
And it caught on by George. Chalk-offs became a spectator sport and a staple of county fairs. Viewers watched and waited for old George to drop one.
The best run I ever had was 87 straight. And that was during the last year that I was at WSM. And I really wanted to make it to 100. That was a goal.
For Rudy Kalis, the goal was landing safely on the ground. Rudy Kalis and Charlie Mack had fun with sports in the 80s, both out in the field and in the studio.
For the first couple of years, first 2 years, I didn't know how to take Dan. He was a lot of fun, but I didn't know how to come back on him, to get back at him.
Here's Charlie Mack with sports. You remember your math?
Yeah.
What's 8 times 9?
76.
Is that right?
But one night, it finally clicked.
I noticed Dan had a piece of steak in his teeth, and he was about to throw it to me, and he'd said some cutting remark to me, jabbing at me, and I said, Dan, you've got a piece of steak between your teeth. I said, and to be such a professional, you should be much more careful. And I said, it's over to the left. And he said, well, just go ahead and do your sports. I said, no, you really have a piece of steak in your teeth, and I don't think it's very professional. I think you should get it out before you go any further. Rarely did he blush, but he blushed then.
News Travel Network report.
Lonnie was a different story.
I went to school in France for a year, and I speak French, and I had gone to Paris for a week on vacation. And I came back to Nashville and was really brushing up on my French and was really proud that I could speak it, and I loved the accent. And there was a story about, have you heard this? There was a story about the French president in that time, whose name I enjoyed saying. So for some reason, I don't know, I was in that mode, I said, French President François Mitterrand. And Dan, who of course is sitting about 8 inches away from me, didn't have to say a thing. All he did was he did a quarter turn, just like this as I'm on the air, and I lost it. I just fell out. I knew what I had done. I was obnoxious and pretentious, and okay, he caught me.
Here's Bill, sitting here waiting to go on the air. How long?
I was waiting for a little piece of paper over there, sir.
Pardon? What do you need paper for?
We wanted to check the current temperature to see if it's right.
Okay. I'm just being nosy. Bill just would pick at me as one Southerner to another. Bill Hall's name was mentioned to me more than any other name that I've ever worked with because, and I'm sure you know this, everywhere I went, it never failed, the first thing out of people's mouth was, where's Bill Hall? Or, what's Bill Hall doing? Or you tell that Bill Hall.
You know, we were fortunate enough to have that chemistry between us. And I think it's our current boss right now, Mike Herron. I believe Mike said it. He once told Dan and me that he felt that we had done more for race relations than any other group in the world in this part of the country.
But Bill says he and others do owe a lot to Bob Jordan, Channel 4's first black anchor.
European nations June 14th. The trip is part of a trade mission arranged by Commerce Union Bank.
We never had a problem, never got any phone calls, letters, anything. As I said, I was readily accepted. My toughest job was getting over my inexperience and any apprehensions I had about being on camera. I hear from people all the time, I see people in Nashville who say, you know, we watch you in Nashville all the time on cable.
The family of Angeline Gatewood continues to grieve, knowing that she was a victim in the wrong.
Bob now has a national audience anchoring news at WGN in Chicago. That same city came calling for Lonnie Lardner in the winter of 1983.
And it was a really hard departure. I got in the car and I had a stack of mail from well-wishers. And I got in my car and drove toward Chicago. Of course, it was like 30 degrees below zero when I went in December. I'm driving up there, and I would stop at truck stops and pull out these letters and read them and just start to lose it. I would get real misty because people genuinely felt we were part of their family, I think.
There would be some key additions to the Channel 4 family yet to come.
Demetria Kalodimos is the best blend of all the female anchors that we've had, because she brought to us, you brought to us, not she, I'm talking to you. You brought to us the skills of the anchor, the communication skills, already well refined, but you also wanted to be a hard-nosed, intense reporter, and you brought skills of that nature to us as well.
Good evening. The superintendent of Spencer Youth Center today is investigating charges that
I was anxious to find a job where I could do more than just anchor the news, where I could actually go out and report on stories and use some of my writing skills. And also, I wanted to find a place where I could use my own name. In my previous job, management had made me change my name. They thought Demetria Kalodimos was far too long and complicated for television viewers to appreciate. And when I came to Channel 4, they said, please, use it. You know, all 8 syllables. We want you to be comfortable. And I think Nashville's gotten used to it. They still can't spell it, but folks have gotten used to it.
I kept my name, but another did change. The sale of Channel 4 to George Gillette in 1981 turned WSM to WSMV.
It was a dream. It was a dream come true for me that it was available. I would never have dreamed that WSM television might be for sale.
Before the decade was over, the station would change hands again. Cook Inlet Television Partners took ownership in June of 1989. Yet the biggest headlines came in 1986, when Dan Miller announced he was leaving to anchor the news in Los Angeles.
Well, I guess this will be one of the last times that we'll turn to each other here and say this.
Yeah, I've got a lot.
So it was an agonizing decision. But I knew early on that I probably was going to take it. And I asked many friends about it. I badgered you about it, I know, many times. It was a rough decision because it was rough to leave Nashville.
The community response was nothing short of incredible.
It's the worst thing that has ever happened to TV.
He's a tradition here in Nashville.
Oh, we love him.
Truthfully, and I had no idea that it would have that kind of impact. I really didn't. I was amazed that my leaving made the front page of the paper.
I remember when I'd been there for 2 years, and when I left, it was like front page news, you know. And when Dan Miller left, I think that it was like they closed the city.
More than you know, I appreciate the letters and the expressions of support, the good wishes, especially in recent weeks. I'm confident that whoever ends up in this news desk in the future will find the same friendship and support that has meant so much to me. Thanks for everything.
And we went through an amazing process to replace Dan. We put up committees all over the station of employees. We got committees of professionals from around the country. We got people who had previously worked with the station because we were afraid that if we didn't choose someone ideally suited for Nashville, that there would be a huge negative backlash. And there wasn't.
On tonight's Scene at 6, the former director of Community Access Television.
I didn't know anything about Dan Miller before I got here, and before I came down for the interview, but I had heard that he was a living legend and that he had moved on, and that's why there was this opening. And I had second thoughts about it because I thought, how do you follow an act like Dan Miller?
As it turns out, there was nothing for Jeff or Channel 4 to worry about.
We chose Jeff McAtee, and Dan Miller left in 1986. And in 1987, Demetria, Jeff, Bill, and Rudy had higher ratings than we had in 1986. So it worked well.
From Channel 4 News, this is the Scene at 6 with Jeff.
And I think people feel comfortable with Channel 4 as an entity. And if either or both of us should leave and our replacements come in, I don't think that's going to change things significantly, because I think people will still feel comfortable with the overall philosophy and the way we operate, and they'll continue to watch because Channel 4 is what they're used to. They appreciate our style.
Just like part of the family. The 80s solidified Channel 4's longtime commitment to family values with a campaign called For the Family. More than just a slogan, For the Family has become a permanent philosophy at Channel 4.
And we sat down, and this was not one of these things where you sat down and said, well, look, we need a promotional campaign. What are we going to do? We sat down and said, how can we give something back?
Since then, countless news stories, documentaries, and in-depth series have explored family issues and helped Channel 4 win some of journalism's highest awards. In fact, WSMV became in the 80s the most honored television station in the nation.
You deserve the best. We really believe that. We at Channel 4, Nashville, America's most honored television station.
Boyce Hawkins, Dave Overton, David Cobb, Dr. Carl Seifert, Barbara Moore.
From Television City in Hollywood.
That saying about history repeating itself, sometimes it really is true. In this case, you have to go back to about 1972.
From 72, 73, when Pat first came to Nashville, and we became very fast friends and very close friends, and he used to say one of his goals in his future career was to do The Tonight Show or something like it. And he would say, it'd be great if you could be Ed McMahon. You could be my sidekick on there.
Watch out.
Once Dan Miller moved to Los Angeles, his dream news job took a nightmarish turn. 3 weeks after he arrived at KCBS, the people who hired Dan were fired themselves. New management wanted to choose a new anchorman, regardless of an ironclad contract.
Which, you know, under normal conditions would have been great. I was full pay, sitting home for over a year, and really not knowing what was going to happen until Pat Sajak started saying, I'm going to do a talk show, and I'd like you to be a part of it.
Very nice.
Did you hear from anybody back
As a
home?
matter of fact, I did. My family called.
All right, he's already doing bits. 2 days and he's pulling out material.
Inspected by number 9.
The two old friends would reunite in two new roles.
It was very hard for me to accept in many ways the role that I really was there to play, and that was the second banana.
You know, less than 6 months ago, he was a newscaster interviewing congressmen.
I'm glad I did it. You know, this is only life. You do things. Some work, some don't. Some are fun, some are not. Well, then after the show ended, I got feelers and in fact, one pretty good offer from different markets for news.
Pat Sajak's still in L.A. spinning that wheel. Huell Hauser reports on the lighter side for PBS on the coast. Lonnie Lardner has put TV on hold to open an art gallery, but you can still see John Tesh on Entertainment Tonight, hear his music on compact disc, and catch him anchoring the Olympics in 1992.
Good evening, I'm Carol Marine.
Carol Marine remains one of Chicago's top anchors and reporters. Bob Jordan gives her good competition on the city's 9 o'clock news. You can tune in the Nashville network to catch up with Charlie Chase, or tune in your radio for another Charlie, Mac.
It's just what I'm doing right now. I'm more happy with than anything I've ever done.
Bob Olson practices law but admits he misses TV. Elaine Gannick doesn't have time to. She's the mother of 3. Al Vex does morning radio. Teddy Bart's also on the dial. And thanks to those siding commercials, you can still see Paul Eel smile. It all started with television, something totally new. Those who remember life before it now can't imagine life without it.
We've gone from black and white, from radio to television, from black and white television to color. And something can happen around the world, across the world in China. And you can see it in your living room within seconds. It's amazing.
To me, TV and air conditioning were the 2 biggest inventions in the world. And I don't know how in that time we lived without either one of them.
I used to joke that if you put a test pattern on Channel 4, it would probably, it might not finish number 1, but it would probably finish number 2.
I think that we have been there when they needed us. Maybe occasionally we've been there when they didn't think they needed us, but maybe they'll forgive us for that.
The people out there who turn that little knob on Channel 4 sign my paycheck. And, you know, we put kids through college by people signing that paycheck out there, and, you know, I owe them.
What working here did for me was to show me how good it can really be.
Here's to 40 years of memories. Still, just the beginning.
WSMV, Nashville.
Good evening. Oil prices went shooting up today. Stock prices went way down.
At one point, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 64 points. Dagny Stewart, Channel 4 News.
Metro detectives are hoping that new technology can be the breakthrough.
15 years ago, police collected evidence, hoping it would provide them with clues to the murder. Janet Sims, Channel 4 News.
For 3 days now, American Indians have been camped out in Bell's Bend near the Mike O'Connell, Channel 4 News.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Dwight Henry got
The strike, which hit at Radnor Yards here in Nashville and in other cities across.
Here in Nashville, Tennessee today, it has been a gorgeous day weather-wise. I don't know.
The Division I AA football polls were released today as well, and the MTSU Blue Raiders are number